you ever feel discouraged with life? We all do at some point. But the big question is whether or not you do something about that feeling. Or do you just sit back and hope that it will go away? It won't. It will keep creeping back up. Fret no more. I've asked a couple of friends to be with us here today to awaken our passions and help us determine the why of our lives. Janet and Chris Atwood are the authors of the popular book, The Passion Test, The Effortless Path to Discovering Your Destiny. Janet and Chris live their lives focused on helping people like you and me realize that we can live our lives doing the things that matter to us. Janet, Chris, welcome to Success.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you, Darren.
Thanks, Darren.
So tell us, why passion? I mean, what drove the two of you to help others discover and live their passions on a daily basis? How did this come up for you guys?
Well, it was actually a really fun story. In 2001, Chris and I were partnering with Mark Victor Hansen. You might know of him.
Of course.
I'm sure you do. The amazingly successful co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and Robert Allen, who's the author of Nothing Down, Creating Wealth. And we were giving one of our first conferences in La Jolla, California. And it was our Enlightened Millionaire program. And Mark and Bob walk into my office, and I was in charge of, getting the people in the rooms and setting everything up. That was my part of the conference, not speaking. I was a wannabe speaker. And they walk into my office and they said, "We can't be at the conference tomorrow for a couple hours. We're doing a really cool TV show." And I said, "What do you mean you're doing a TV show? Who's going to be on stage?" And they looked at me, they started laughing, and they said, "You are." And I said, "What do you mean I am?" And I totally freaked. And they walked out the door. This is really true. And I am like, holy moly. I knew they were absolutely, clear that I was going to do it. I just wasn't that clear. But I ran to my business partner, Chris, and I said, "Chris, Mark and Bob just said that I have to give something tomorrow, and I don't have anything to give." I said, "What'll I give?" And I had developed this little test to get me out of this awful job I was in. And it worked, and that was the only thing I had had. I had given this little test to about 13 people up until that time. And Chris and I stayed up all night putting together this program, and the next morning I walk out and stand on the scariest stage I have ever stood on in my whole life. I think there were about 500 people, and let me tell you, they were really, really scary to me. As I looked out in the audience, and the next 2 hours flew by. I honestly do not remember one thing I spoke. But it must have been good, because at the end of the program, all 500 of them, and this really happened, stand up and give me a roaring standing ovation. And I was like, yes. And that was how I realized right in that moment when they stood up, and afterwards as I, walked, through the halls and talked to everybody afterwards, that this little test was really a life changer for a lot of people. So that was the beginning, for us to collaborate together on what is now known as the #1 tool being used all over the world to help people align with their passions, the things that they care most about.
Well, it's obviously a hot topic because according to one survey, 80% of Americans aren't passionate about anything or are unfulfilled in life. So explain why you think this is, why we've become so dispassionate or disgruntled as a society.
Well, think about it, Darren. If 80% of the population is not passionate about what they do, then who are the parents and teachers that our children are growing up with and have been growing up with in the past? They're those people, for the most part, who are unhappy, who are disgruntled, who are dispassionate because they don't believe that they can live their passions. They don't believe they can live their dreams. And so most of us grow up in an environment where we're told, you have to be responsible. You have to go to school and get a job that someone will pay you well enough so you can pay your bills. And then maybe someday, if you're lucky, you can follow your passions and live your dreams. And unfortunately, most people go through their lives with this kind of programming, this kind of conditioning that guides their decision making.
So let's clear another false perspective. I think another reason why a lot of people don't focus on their passions and live their life based on themselves and what's important to them is they feel selfish when doing so. Tell us what you would say to someone who brought that up as a reason for not living a happy or fulfilled life.
Oh boy, I'll tell you, I've been traveling all over the world for the last 2 years giving the passion test, and this comes up on a regular basis. And I would say it comes up more, Darren, with women than men. And I remember one specific time when I was actually giving a program in Del Mar, California, and this woman comes up to me during my program, and I just delivered the passion test, and she is sobbing. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "Oh my God, well, I want to have a clothing store, but I'm a mother, and what about my boys?" And I said, I said, "Okay, so just for a minute, let's back up here." I said, "Do you ever feel, just a little bit upset or angry or short with your boys when you're at home because you're not able to live the life that you want to live, or even a little bit of it?" And she goes, "Uh-huh." And I said, "Well, what would it be like? Just imagine, what would it be like if just every single day you carved out a little bit of time, just a little bit of time, to live what you consider to be your passion? Maybe here you want to have this clothing store. Maybe, what you could spend your time doing is just doing a little time researching, the clothes that you want to have in it, or, research where it would be or what kind of store it would be and what would it look like." I said, "If you started to do that, how would that make you feel? Just a little bit of extra time, that you could carve out for you." And she said, "Oh, that would make me so happy." And I said, "Well, and what would it be like, do you think, with your boys when you're with them and you're spending time with them after?" She said, "Yeah, I get it." And this happens all the time, Darren. I really wonder where that really false belief came up, that it's selfish doing what you love, because when I think about it myself, I think it's actually selfish not doing what you love. And the reason I feel that way is because, think about it, when you're doing what you love, you are overflowing, in happiness, in joy. What happens when you're overflowing is you want to give, and you want to help others, and you want to be of service, and you want to share your happiness. And when you're not living your passion, when you're not doing those things that you care most about, you're in this contracted state, and that is definitely not a place where you're overflowing and where you want to be a giver.
Yeah. People don't want to hear a sermon, they want to see a sermon, right? You don't teach your children or the people around you how you want them to be. You just be that how in which you want them to be by example. And that's the best way in which to teach is through the example of your own life and your own, your own excitement, living your own truth, your own passions, and so forth. So let's define this thing called passion. What is it? And it's obviously different for different people. My passion isn't necessarily the same as either of you or my wife's or the guy I walk by on the street. So share how people generally define passion and what differentiates it between individuals.
So Darren, I'd like to share with you how Janet and I define passion, which is your passions are the things that you love and care about most. They're the things that have greatest meaning for you, the things that matter most to you in your life. So those things are what give meaning and purpose to your life. And when your life is connected to those things, then you feel passionate. Then you feel turned on. Then you feel excited. And those things do differ from person to person, obviously. There are general categories that we all have concerns with. We all are concerned about relationship. We're all concerned about our health. We're all concerned about our finances and our career. We all have things that we love to do for fun, or we like different kinds of environments, but the specifics of those are going to be different for each of us. And it also has to do with the things that we really love doing, which are our natural skills and talents, those things that we do well. Those are tied into what makes us feel passionate. When we're really good at something, then we love it, then we enjoy it, then it's engaging for us. And being good at something is not enough for it to be a passion. And I can share with you, Darren, that there was a time in my life where I had made decisions year after year. I went through 4 positions in 5 years where I made decisions based on money. How much money will it pay me? How much chance is there for advancement? What sort of equity share might I get in these companies? And each one made me absolutely miserable. I ended up quitting each one. And finally I said, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something that I just have never done before, but it seems like it might be something I'd be good at. And it didn't have a fancy title. It didn't have even a guaranteed income, but it used my skills and my talents. And so I was good at it. I started making more money than I ever had before. I was very successful. I was one of the top performers in my company. And it was great for about 18 months. During that time, I was learning and I was engaged and I was having fun because it was a challenge. But after about 18 months, I had mastered that job. And there was something deeply missing. Even though I was good at it, it wasn't connected to anything that was really deeply meaningful to me. And as a result, I felt like I was just treading water. And it was really that experience that helped me to see that the things you're good at, your talents, your skills, those things are important components of identifying the things that light you up and that are your passions. But what really makes for passion is what connects us to things that are meaningful to us, things that have personal meaning and what matters to us.
So I really like that distinction about it's different than what are your talents or your skills. It's really what's most meaningful to you. So that's a great distinction. Another distinction that I picked up by reading your book is that passions are different than your goals. So explain how passions and goals are 2 different things.
Sure. The way we like to say it simply is that passion is about how you live your life, and goals are the things that you want to achieve in your life. So passion is the process, goals are the outcome. You know, when you're passionate about something, you love what you're doing. When you achieve a goal, you love what you've achieved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about your test, the passion test that will help us determine our passion so we can be happier and live more fulfilled lives. So talk to us about the test. How does it work?
The first step of the passion test is all about gaining clarity. And what we say in the passion test is when you are clear, what you choose to have show up in your life will, and only to the extent that you're clear. So the first step is what we call the elimination process, where we have people make a list of 10, 15, 20 passions, starting with the sentence, when my life is ideal, I am. And then we have them think of the different areas of their life that Chris was talking about, their health, their education, their career, their relationships, their spirituality, fun, their environment, where they're living. And we always say, okay, right now, we want you to just have fun. Do you guys think you can have fun taking this test that you will never fail? And so think about it, that the mindset would be that everyone and everything is just saying yes to you. All the doors are open. And there is nothing that is not being supported. That all the desires that you have say, one big gigantic, you can do it. And it's a no-brainer. So we have them start with that mindset and make a list of these different passions with the words, when my life is ideal, I am. And we tell them, think of the positive, because your word is your wand. What you think about comes about. So you wouldn't want to put, when my life is ideal, I'm out of this job that totally sucks. Because, all these words have a certain power. So these are the little guidelines that we give them before they take the passion test. And then we say, okay, go for it. You have 10 minutes. Let's start writing them down.
So you talk about making a list of all the things you love, 10, 20, 30 things. This is your passion list. And those are passions that you say are breadcrumbs that lead us to our destiny. And then, so after we've got that, ultimately you want to boil it down to, is it 5 distinct passions?
Right. We've been working with these neuroscientists from the University of Pennsylvania that found that the mind can only contain about 5 to 7 pieces of information at any given time. And so in the passion test, we have people with this elimination process come up with their top 5 passions. so that they're able to put their attention on those things to meet with success. And we have a whole formula that helps them to totally align with those things.
So I'd like to get more and more distinctions cleared up here as we move forward. So we've talked about the difference between talent and what's really meaningful for you in your life, and we've talked about the difference between goals and passions. Now I want you to talk about the difference between intention and attention. You make a very big distinction between the two in your book. So break that down for us here today. Why is it important to our discussion?
Great. It's a great question, Darren. And I'm going to add one other phrase to it because we love to combine these three: intention, attention, and no tension. And the way we define intention is clearly stating what you choose to create in your life. And again, this comes back to the point that Janet was talking about earlier, that when you're clear, what you choose to have show up in your life will, and only to the extent that you're clear. The second, attention, is in terms of where are we putting our focus? Where are we putting our attention in our lives? And unfortunately, most people, because of our conditioning and our programming, most people are putting their attention on all the stuff that they don't want. Their attention is going to the problems, to the challenges. How am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to do about this problem or that problem? And, even in the business world, what you see is that the businesses typically are putting most of their attention on the customers who are complaining, the customers who are unhappy. There's that old saying, that 20% of your customers take up 80% of your time and attention. And the power of attention is something that has a very great impact on the outcomes that we get. So it's a matter of putting your attention on what you choose to create. Even if you're faced with problems, you can dwell on the problem. You can really be thinking about how bad this is, how awful it is, and what am I going to do about it? Or you can see there's a problem and put your attention on what are possible solutions to that problem. What you put your attention on grows stronger. You put your attention on solutions, you're going to get more solutions. The third piece is no tension. Inevitably, things do not turn out the way we think they're going to. And as a result, it's absolutely critical that when we do all that we can think to do, that then we let go. We open ourselves up to the opportunities that are showing up that we may not have conceived of at all previously. And if we are not in that state of no tension, it's like we're cutting off the flow of possibility. But when we're able to be in that state of no tension, when we're able to let go, to open up, then we can see the opportunities that are unexpected. And it's in those opportunities most often that our greatest success lies.
So last question for you today. Our listeners are hopefully going to sit down after they hear this and start to write their own passion list. So if each of you could share a couple of ideas or thoughts that will help them start this journey with the right foot forward, what would be a couple of quick tips if they can turn the CD off, grab a journal or piece of paper, and just help them get started in the right direction? What would be a couple of tips that you'd offer?
One of the biggest challenges people have is, how do I actually put that into action in my life? And so my suggestion and advice to everyone who is listening and who is going through that process is, don't try and jump off a cliff. Some people are inclined to take big risks, and if that's you, great. My encouragement to everyone listening is to begin choosing in favor of your passions when it comes to small things. Little things that aren't going to upset your life, don't go and quit your job so you can follow your passions, but make little decisions on a day-to-day basis and see how things work out. Begin to build up the trust that things will work out. And then as you gain that trust, then you'll have the courage to make those decisions in favor of your passions on the really big and major decisions in your life.
And Janet, any couple of tips you'd like to offer as we wind this up?
One of the things that we found that get in the way of anyone living a passionate life are three things, and it's false beliefs, false ideas, and false concepts. And those false beliefs, like I'm not beautiful enough, rich enough, smart enough, educated enough. And what we see all the time is that those false beliefs are, when you're entertaining those things going on, you might know what you're passionate about, but if you've got all this other stuff going on in your head about what you can't do, what you're not capable